Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This topic of personalities of Ramayana can go on for a month. There's so many wonderful personalities, and presentations are already prepared for all of them. It's a very nice topic, certainly a nice way to prepare ourselves for Ram Navami. In this congregation, are there some specially strong Ram Bhaktas? Not. Okay. We'll find out. So, Vibhisana. Do you know something about Vibhisana? Can you tell us something about Vibhisana? How about you? No. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Who is Vibhisana? Vibhisana had two brothers and a sister. Who was one of Vibhisana's brothers? Starts with an R. Ravana. You know who is Ravana, right? I'm asking you. Do you know who is Ravana? Yes. Okay, good. He has a brother. He had two brothers. The other one of his brothers starts with a K. Kumbhakarna? Yeah, Kumbhakarna. Okay. Well, we're going to be discussing, so just making sure that you're sitting on the edge of your straw mat over there and paying close attention. Okay. There was a sister, too. You know the sister? Her name starts with an S. She got her nose and her ears cut off. Her name starts with an S. You remember? Shurpanakha. So, a family of four. And of the family of four, one was completely different than the other three. So Vibhisana was the Vaishnava in a family of demons, headed by Ravana. And they have an illustrious background. They're in the descendancy of Pulasya. Pulasya was one of the Prajapatis, coming directly as sons of Lord Brahma. There were a number of them. And Pulasya, to become a Prajapati, he had a wife. And the wife was the daughter of the sage Trinabindu. This is all in Valmiki Ramayana, or any Ramayana. And together they had a son. The son was a very, very qualified personality. His name is Vishravasa, a great Brahmana. And so from Brahma to Pulasya to Vishrava. And he married the daughter of Bhardraj Muni. Bhardraj Muni, we know something about Bhardraj Muni. He was a close associate of Valmiki. So they're in the Brahmana group, but he, with his wife Idravida, had a son. And that son was known, the son of Vishrava was Vishravana, or Vaishravana. He was another name. He became posted as Kuvera. So we're way up there in the exalted realm. Something happened. What's that something that happened? There was a demon who had a daughter. Sumali had a daughter, and one of his daughters, he suggested, why don't you marry just go to the ashram of Vishrava and ask Vishrava to marry you. Well, she did that, except she went not at the right time. He was in the midst of meditation and performing a yajna. So he consented, but said, you've come at the wrong time. So therefore, you're going to have some demon children. No, Kaikashi was the daughter of a demon, the daughter of a Rakshasa named Sumali, and Sumali suggested, hey, my dear daughter Kaikashi, if you married Vishrava, then you'll have some very powerful children. And so at her father's prompt, she went at the wrong time, and Vishrava accepted her proposal, but said, you came at the wrong time, so you're going to have terrible children. One of the first of the terrible children was called Dasagriva because he had 10 necks. Could you imagine somebody born with 10 necks? But Hayagriva, the meaning of Hayagriva is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord that has a neck like a horse. So Hayagriva. So Dasagriva later became Ravana. And then a second son was Kumbhakarna. We'll find some more about each of these personalities. And Shurpanakha was the sister. But Vibhisana, an exception was given when Vishrava told his second wife, Kaikashi, that one of your sons will be very saintly. So that's what happened. And some of you probably received this nice 18 teachings of Govinda, of Valmiki Ramayana, outlined by Govindaraj. Did you receive that? Anyone didn't receive it? You're all silent. You didn't send it? Oh. You'll send it now. Okay. Thank you. So remember on Sunday we spoke a little bit about Govindaraj. So he is a super celebrated, perhaps the best known commentator from the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. And Sri Vaishnavas love Ramayana, and like anything. And generations commented on Ramayana, but the king of them all was Govindaraj, and he outlines 18 principal teachings or lessons found within the Ramayana. They're very, very comprehensive. So one of them is the surrender, and Atma Nivedana is our understanding of the process of surrender. And Vibhisana, exemplified that. He abandoned Lanka, his friends, his possessions, and placed his kingdom, his life, and happiness at Ram's disposal. Full self-surrender. So we have different personalities that outline these full self-surrender. Bali Maharaj is one. He gave everything because Vamana requested. So he gave everything. So dependence, this is not in the text that you'll soon be getting. Dependency on the devotees of the Supreme Lord as exemplified by Vibhisana. Cardinal lessons from Ramayana. There's a nice history of the deity of Ranganath. Very celebrated deity. The deity of Ranganath has its history. The history goes like this. Lord Brahma had, at the very beginning of this particular day of Brahma, the deity appeared to Lord Brahma. And the deity was worshipped by Lord Brahma, and then in the Ikshvaku dynasty, down to the time of Dasarath in Ayodhya. So after the battle with Ravana, when Ramchandra was installed as the king of Ayodhya, he was giving gifts to many people, and the gift he gave to Vibhishan was the deity of Ranganath. And he said, "Thank you very much. Pretty big deity. How am I going to take this home?" But he had a facility to take the deity of Ranganath. On the way, the deity decided that the deity wanted to remain on the banks of the Kaveri River. So he told the deity, Ranganath, told Vibhishan, "I want to stay here." And so he came in for a landing. He had some, I guess, the Vimana that was gifted originally from Kuvera, then stolen by Ravana, now in the property of his kingdom. So he took the Pushpaka Vimana all the way back to Ayodhya, all the way back to Lanka. And the deity promised to do something that deities normally don't do. He said, "I'll face south, assuring that I'll give my protection to you for generations to come." So there's the deity, big deity. There's the Uttav Murti in the front. When they have Abhishek and other festivities, that's the deity that comes forward and then is replaced, etc. Here's a close-up of the deity, Ranganath. So Vibhishan has an important role to play. Now, in the painting at the top, we see Kaikashi, the second wife, meeting Vishravas, who was engaged in a fire sacrifice. And she just stood there, scratching the ground with her toe, and it was obvious that she wanted his attention, but he was busy with his fire yajna. So he interrupted the fire yajna and predicted that, "Yes, I'll accept your proposal, but the children that will be born from you will be cruel and horrific demons, except the younger brother who will be virtuous like his father." Vibhishan took after his father. And on the bottom, there you see, there's the same Vishravas in Brahman attire and his little ashram behind him. And there's his wife, Kaikashi, and Vibhishan as the little baby because he was the youngest of them. And then behind her, there's the 10-headed Ravana. And then behind him is Kumbhakarna, and then behind Kumbhakarna is Shurpanakha. So the family of 4. And there's the father, and there's the mother. So Dasa Griva became known as Ravana because of an event that took place. He was powerful, very, very powerful, of course, very odd looking, with 10 arms, or 20 arms and 10 heads. But he was very powerful. And he went around beating people up and challenging this one and challenging that one. And one time he went to Mount Kailash and he saw Lord Shiva on top of Mount Kailash, so he decided to lift the mountain. And when he started to lift the mountain, Parvati became afraid. "What's that?" He said, "It's just a puny guy downstairs. He's trying to lift the mountain. I'll just put my big toe on the mountain." When he put the big toe on the mountain, Ravana's 20 arms were underneath the mountain. And his arms were getting crushed by the mountain and the toe of Lord Shiva. And he just kept the toe in place. And he was screaming and roaring in pain. That's how I got the name Ravana. And there are different things that are said, of course, in different versions of Ramayana. But the veins in his body were bulging, and he's using the veins in his body, bulging veins in his body, like a musical instrument. He started playing his musical instrument, and it was a very pleasing sound. So Lord Shiva lifted his toe and gave him his benedictions and so on. Kumbhakarna, on the other hand, he wanted a benediction when he had done austerities. He wanted a benediction that he could eat unlimitedly and sleep unlimitedly. So to test it out, you can see from the painting, he had elephants. His body was gigantic. He had elephants tromping on his body, and they had big drums and banging on the drums and smashing his body with clubs and this and that. Not a sleeper. He was a good sleeper. And then when he woke up, then they had this huge feast for him. And he devoured everything. Kumbhakarna, big appetite, a heavy sleeper. Kumbhakarna had that wish. Vibhisana's wish was very simple. His simple wish was pure devotion. So the austerities that Ravana performed was, a demon's dream. He wanted to rule the three worlds, not just his planet or Lanka. He wanted to rule the three worlds. Kumbhakarna, the benediction that he could sleep, and Vibhisana want the benediction to always serve the Supreme Lord. Vibhisana stood on one foot for 5,000 years. When his vow was completed, for yet another 5,000 years, he gazed steadily at the sun, standing with his arms raised above his head, and his mind fixed upon Vedic recitation. Pretty severe austerities. May every thought that I may have in each and every stage of my life in this world be supremely righteous, and may I always uphold the righteous conduct appropriate at every stage. So that's quite different. He wanted virtue. And so Vibhisana, who was part of the royal family in Lanka, Sri Lanka, he had some ministers, 4 ministers who become very important later on when he surrenders, because the 4 ministers came with him. So they were assisting him in all of his duties in the royal palace. And Ravana, the elder of the brothers, made arrangement for each of the others to have a husband. So Sarama was the daughter of a great king of the Gandharvas. And so Vibhisana, arrangement of marriage was made by Ravana for her to marry him. Born on the shore of Lake Manasa, during one rainy season, her mother called out, "Sarama, do not flood." And so that name stuck with her. There's a nice painting of the Pushpaka Vimana. And Vibhisana, he was the brother of these other 2 demoniac persons. And he wasn't part of what he did, but he learned that Ravana was very interested in kidnapping young girls, anyone. And so he said to his brother, "This act of yours is very sinful and unbecoming of our good family. Already as a reaction to your wickedness, your own aunt, Kumbhinasi, has been kidnapped by a Rakshasa, Madhu." So there's consequences. There may not be exactly a one-to-one consequence of sinful activity, but it's certainly going to happen. The laws of nature are like that. Kumbhasini was the unmarried daughter of Malyavan, the uncle of Ravana's mother, Kaikashi, who was residing in Ravana's palace. So Kumbhinasi was kidnapped by a Rakshasa. Now, another mention that's not found in Valmiki Ramayana, but it's found in one of the Ramayanas, that Hanuman here disguised as a Brahmana, because Hanuman had different shape-changing abilities. So one of them was to appear as a Brahmana. According to this other Ramayana, he met with Vibhisana. Hanuman met with Vibhisana after meeting with Sita and before having this confrontation in the Ashok garden, before destroying the garden, etc., etc., etc. That just describes it. So it's not in Valmiki Ramayana. What does that mean? It could mean different things, but one of the things, because it's a well-known Ramayana, it could mean just different days of Brahma. During different days of Brahma, there are different appearances of Lord Ramachandra, and so forth. A very nice scriptural resource for those of us in ISKCON to read is Laghu Bhagavatamrita. Just today, I was researching something, and the something that we were researching had to do with the origin of the Ganges. I'll just share. We know the Lord Vamana history of Vamana taking his third step by poking his toe into the covering of the universe, and the universal water came through from beyond the covering of the universe. And then as it descended, it became the Ganges. That's our fifth canto explanation. And then there's a Valmiki Ramayana explanation. And the Valmiki Ramayana explanation was given by the sage that took Ram and Lakshman to kill the demons. What? Vishwamitra, thank you. Thank you. So Vishwamitra, when in the course of their travels to go to confront the demon, they had conversations, and there's one conversation in that section of Valmiki Ramayana where Ram wants to know, and Vishwamitra tells him the origin of the Ganges. And according to the Valmiki Ramayana, the origin of the Ganges is she's one of two daughters of the mountain Himavan. So one of the daughters was Uma, and the second daughter was Himavati. Are you with me? Can I say it again? Say it again. Valmiki Ramayana has a different description of the origin of the Ganges. And the description says, Vishwamitra says, that when Sati annihilated her body when she was, by the offense of her father, Daksha, she took birth in the Himalayas, or the daughter of Himavan. And he also says there was a second daughter, in addition to Uma, so the Himavan had a second daughter, and her name is Himavati. And Himavati was the origin of the Ganges. And then there's some details in Valmiki Ramayana of how you can have two sources of the Ganges. But if you like to explore, you can read Laghu Bhagavatamrita, and this description it becomes more complex than just those two options. The more complex picture is there are three in each day of Brahma. There are three appearances of Lord Vamana. We'll do it again. In each day of Lord Brahma, there's one appearance of Krishna and one appearance of Ramachandra, and 3 appearances of Vamana. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear of one of those 3, but there's 2 others. And without the detail, there's some detail. I spent some time, and someone else was helping me, a very good researcher was helping me, to indicate that there certainly may be more than one source of the Ganges, but there's one Ganges. And the sources, there's 2 different sources, but they're not in conflict, and there's like a long description of how it's not a conflict. It's not that Valmiki Ramayana is wrong, or the Srimad Bhagavatam is wrong. They're both right. They're 2 different accounts. And they're, it's in the same day of Brahma. It's the same, the same universe that we're in. So different sources of the same river. And I'll invite you to read the nice document. I forwarded it to you if you feel it's appropriate. It's a little complex. But I had an interesting day today. I'm sharing with you part of my interesting day today. Okay. So similarly, there are different Ramayanas. And the different Ramayanas have different accounts. It was just like even in the Puranas, there's some details that's not found in Srimad Bhagavatam that are found in Vishnu Purana or Padma Purana, or details about the pastimes that are in Srimad Bhagavatam that aren't found in Srimad Bhagavatam, but they're found in other Puranas. So it doesn't mean if this is right, then that's wrong. You follow? There can be different explanations of the same, what appears to be the same thing, a different lens. The author is the same, Vyasadeva is the same author of the Puranas, but in some places emphasizes this, in some places that. Okay, moving on. This is now, we already heard about Hanuman and being bound by Ravana's soldiers. So there is Hanuman bound by Ravana's soldiers. But when they decided, what to do with him, Ravana decided to kill him because Hanuman spoke straightforward, and didn't insult him. He just gave him wise advice. Return Sita, or else you're going to lose everything, because you're messing with the wrong person. You're messing with Ramachandra, and that's his wife, and what you're doing is sinful. And so just return her, and everything will be nice. He became angry, so he wanted to kill him. And then Vibhisana spoke. This is one of Vibhisana's functions. He's the voice of virtue in a place that's far from virtue. No, it's just a law of kings. When there's an emissary from another king, you can't kill the emissary. The modern saying, you don't shoot the messenger. Same thing. So he's the emissary, and he's come carrying a message from Ramachandra, return Sita, and he wants to kill him. So instead, the idea is still, Hanuman is bound. Here it's showing he's breaking the ropes, but he could have done that from the very beginning, but he didn't break. So here's breaking the ropes, but they're planning instead to punish him. Vibhisana said, according to the laws of kings, you can punish, but you can't kill. So Ravana decided, okay, well, a monkey is very much fond of their tail. So let's put his tail on fire. So the painting is showing he wrapped his tail with cloth, soaked his cloth in oil, and then set the cloth on fire. And there's Hanuman just sitting there very calmly watching him do what he's going to do. And now they're putting some fire to the cloth that's at the end of his tail. Nice painting. Vibhisana tried to give good counsel to Ravana 3 times. This is during this exchange before the burning the tail of Ravana. And 3 times. And each time, Ravana became more angry. Don't talk back to me. I'm your older brother. I can do what I want to do. And he was a nasty man. So finally, it came with respect. There you see on the left side of this painting, there's his 4 ministers. He decided, there's no more service for me. It's a little bit, it's not the same, but it's a little bit like Vidura, trying to instruct. And when he tried instructing, and the one that was being instructed just became angry. Good advice to a demoniac person doesn't have a good result. But he tried. And so he paid his respects to his elder brother, and then he disappeared. Here, this is showing he's sitting in the assembly, and his brother kicked him in the chest. So he decided to leave. He just rose from the assembly because he had mystic powers. He didn't get an airplane or anything. He just zoom off in the sky. And his 4 ministers came right behind him. And this painting is meant to show, Ramchandra wasn't there at the very beginning, but he came in for a landing, but he stood hovering in the air, and everyone was wondering what's going on, who's this person. And Sugriva was particularly not trusting. So when the message was through Sugriva, please carry a message to Ramchandra. I'd like to take his shelter. So this is the build-up of this Atmanivedana position of Vibhisana. Vibhisana left his home, he left his family, he left his possessions, he left everything. He didn't take sannyas, he just leaving everything behind to take shelter of the personality of Godhead, Ramachandra. So Sugriva did what he was asked. He carried the message to Ramachandra, and with his little message. I don't trust him. He knows you're all powerful. He knows Ravana's going to lose everything. He wants the kingdom. He's motivated. He's a self-interested guy. I don't trust him. And you don't make buddies with a self-interested guy. He could turn on you as easily can turn on something else, and I don't trust him. So what did Ram do? He did what a leader did. We mentioned this already, but he consulted those persons who he's the leader of, his chief leaders, and this one, that one, the other one, they all had a different voice. There was no consensus. The strongest of the voices was Sugriva, and it was like, I don't trust him. Here's a little statement here. He had doubts about Vibhisana and being loyal to Ramachandra. He's self-interested. So there's with the monkey with the crown, that's Sugriva. And then there's Hanuman, and Sugriva is being asked, and Hanuman was silent until Hanuman was asked, what do you think? So finally, there's the 4 ministers hovering in the air, as on the upper right part of this painting. And finally, Hanuman was given his opportunity to speak, only speak when called upon. So he said, there's really nothing to decide. You've already decided. Your nature is you're very compassionate. And he's already accepted. There's nothing really to discuss. And Ramchandra then spoke. I mean, you know this nice story. In the past, there was a dove that gave shelter to an eagle when the latter had killed the dove's wife. Even when there's cause for harsh response, the eagle had killed his wife, but when the eagle was in difficulty, the dove forgave him. And then he gave a second example. There was a sage named Kandu, who was the son of the sage Kanva, who was known to have spoken on the virtue of giving shelter to anyone who subordinates themselves to a person who is capable of giving shelter. And then he spoke about the consequences of not doing that when you have the capacity to give shelter. So it's a lesson in Ramayana about shelter giving, and Vibhisana was the one. These words were to appease Sugriva, who was objecting to Vibhisana's request. All this is in Uttarakhanda. And even after hearing Ram's words, Sugriva's, not so sure. He's not as surrendered as Vibhisana is, in other words. He's a protector, he's a powerful ruler type person. And then one of the criterion is when you give shelter, when you have the power to give shelter, he explained to Sugriva his unlimited strength and prowess. He can give protection to anyone at any time, no difficulty. And then when one's heart is compassionate, what are you going to do? Here we find this nice verse from Uttarakhanda, quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita, celebrated verse. You all know the verse probably. Most of you will know the verse. It's my vow, Ramachandra is saying to the Vanaras, that if only once one seriously surrenders to me, saying, my dear Lord, from this day I am yours, and prays to me for courage, I shall immediately award courage to that person, and he will always remain safe from that time on. Now this is a big topic. I mean, if you haven't noticed, it's a big topic. Because supposing someone once upon a time says, I surrender to you, Haribol, and they skip out the door. And it wasn't really a surrender, it was, convenient. So that's not what this verse means. So question, is surrender an ongoing activity, or is it a one-time event? That's the topic. That's the topic. So there's dispute amongst Vaishnavas, amongst learned Vaishnavas, about respectable learned Vaishnavas that have disagreement on this topic. And some say, and some say. Largely our understanding, there's different ways of understanding. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. You know the verse? Swalpam means little. Swalpa. Swalpa. And supposing one just does a little service. Prabhupada's expression. Supposing someone comes to the temple and they just do a little service. They may turn one screw. That's Prabhupada's words. And from that little service is never forgotten by Krishna. It's their permanent asset, never lost. Kalpa, apyasya, dharmasya, trayate. Trayate means deliver. Trayate mahato bhayat. The greatest fear is taken from that person. That greatest fear is, according to Prabhupada's explanation, is descending from the human form of life into a lower form of life. Greatest fear. If one is thoughtful, that's dangerous. So Krishna protects one, even the littlest service. So in that sense, even once, even turning one screw or cleaning the floor or taking the garbage out or something, little service. Little service. What to speak of, so The ongoing, it's not just a little service and the bell rings. You're in Goloka Vrindavan. But there's a process, a cultivation, an ongoing cultivation process that it requires or involves ongoing surrender. So the ongoing surrender is an ongoing process. It's not a one-time process. But the commitment that Krishna makes to that person that does even the littlest thing, that's permanent. I'm going to tell another little Prabhupada story I like. Really? So here's the Prabhupada story. As many of you know, probably everyone here knows, when Prabhupada came to America, he came by boat, and when he reached America, in the boat crossing, he had 2 heart attacks. And he survived. Krishna intervened. There's a nice description of how that happened. Krishna protected him. And 1 year later, he had a 3rd heart attack. So he was taken to a hospital, and the doctor said, your heart condition is such that if you don't exercise every day, you won't survive number 4. So Prabhupada took it seriously, and from that point onward, every day for 1 hour he would walk. And as he would do everything in a regulated way, that was one of his So many of the places that Prabhupada liked to go was in parks, where there's nature, there's trees, and there's, something different than the urban center where there were temples and where there was access to many people. So he liked parks. But sometimes there were opportunities where there wasn't a park nearby. So sometimes he walked in the public street. Rarely, but sometimes. So it was one occasion like that. He was in downtown London, the Soho Street Temple, downtown London. And as he was walking, when he would see, his eye would catch other people, their eye would catch his eye, and Prabhupada would nod and say, "Good morning." And consistently do like that during this particular morning walk. So one of the devotees asked Prabhupada, "Why don't you say Hare Krishna instead of good morning? Hello, good morning." He said, if I say Hare Krishna, they may think, here's a sectarian fellow, and they'll dismiss me. But if I use their language and say, not in every circumstance he did the same thing, but he said, then they reciprocate, and then their devotional service has begun. That was his consideration. Let them begin devotional service, however, just say, "Good morning, sir." Greeting of Vaishnava. It's the beginning of devotional service. So it's nice to help people begin devotional service. Now back to the topic, is surrender a one-time deal or is it an ongoing process? It's both. There's the beginning, and Lord Ramachandra accepts. That's what the verse is saying. It is my eternal principle that if any living being takes shelter of me, even one saying I am yours, then I award that person freedom from all fear. Now, this is one of the 18 principal teachings of Govindaraj. Mataji, there's a tripod right behind you. And the tripod is holding up the camera. And if you sit right there, no, it's not the camera, it's the tripod. Yeah, I think you're okay. Just watch out for the tripod. Okay. Tripod is safe now, right? That's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Okay. So the Sri Vaishnavas have this term charma shloka. This is highest teaching. That's this take shelter of Ramachandra, and he'll protect you from all fear. So Ram then he purposefully, because the discussion primarily back and forth is with Sugriva, who was doubting, and he asked Sugriva, please bring Vibhisana. Not someone else, but Sugriva. So Sugriva did. And it was through Sugriva that Vibhisana desired initially to take shelter, and now it's Vibhisana is being given shelter through Sugriva. And he takes shelter. And there's his 4 ministers in the background. And there's more to this. So he came with the 4 ministers, or different paintings, or different styles. And the 4 ministers represent, this is Sri Vaishnava commentary on the 4 ministers represent different features or elements in surrender. Because it's a very, very major part of, just like Mame Kam Sharanam Praja. It's a very important part of Krishna's teaching, very important part of Ramachandra's teaching. So this is their language. This is Sri Vaishnava's language. Akinchinatvam. This is one part of the person who's approaching for shelter. I possess nothing which I view as my shelter, and since I have nowhere else to go, you're my only shelter. It sounds the same, but it's dismissing others and accepting only one. Ananya gatitvam. I fully repose my shelter-taking spirit in the Sharanya, the person who's giving me shelter. And then there's qualifications of the Sharanya, that he gives shelter to anyone without any consideration of who they are. Or saralata. Saralata is simplicity. Whoever, a qualified person is like that. Like your Prabhupada was certainly like that. Ramachandra is certainly like that. And exalted persons are like that. And they can afford to do so because they're so powerful. And nothing contamination-wise can touch them because they have that Shakti. So those are the 4 ministers of Vibhisana represent these 4 characteristics. This is at least how Sri Vaishnava Acharyas like to describe the 4 ministers that came. And then there's further description, because this is Govindaraj. Saralata, simplicity. Ram gives shelter to anyone without any consideration of who they are. He's approachable by all, irrespective of their background or mundane identity. And it's very nice. So Ram's accepted, Vibhisana is surrendered, and now they're ready for their next journey. Saralata, simplicity. Ram gives shelter, and we did this. Ram was the shelter of Jatayu. He was the shelter of Guha, the shelter of Sugriva, the shelter of Jambavan, the shelter of a squirrel. And he, would instruct, like when Hanuman was telling the squirrel, get out of the way. We're trying to build a bridge here. And Ramachandra scolded him. No. He's doing his capacity, and you're doing your capacity. Yours is greater, that's okay. His is lesser, that's okay. His service should be accepted and honored. So however big or small one is, any service that you do, sincere service, it's very significant from the point of view of the Supreme. And Shakti, he can do all this because he's powerful. An exhibition of his power, Ram single-handedly killed 14,000 Rakshasas at Janastan. If you notice in the painting, on the upper right, there's a little cave in the mountain. That's where Lakshman has placed Sita for protection. So he was stood alone and killed generals and 14,000 warriors. So his power is quite sufficient. Two additional traits: gratitude. Lord Rama feels gratitude even for the minute service or feelings of love we may have for him. He is the personification and shelter of Dharma. Gratitude. It's gratitude towards what we receive from him, but he's also feeling gratitude for those that take shelter. He's grateful for those who take shelter and render some service. And he always keeps his word. So he's worthy of our respect and shelter because he gives his word and he keeps his word. It's nice. It's really nice. In the very beginning of my Krishna conscious life as a young brahmachari a few years ago, one of the teachings that was repeated again and again. One of my godbrothers liked this teaching in particular, so he said it all the time. A man is only as good as his word. No, it's not an unfamiliar saying. Lady also, but you give your word, you keep your word. So be very careful what you give your word to, because once you give your word, that's it. Unchanging. Unless you get permission from the other person, I'd like to take it back. That's a possibility. But, it's not a good idea to do that. Just keep your word. Be cautious, circumspect. Once you give your word, that's it. Here's an example of keeping his word. Sita, I will let go of my life, you or even Lakshmana, but I'll never let go of the oath that I've given to my devotees. Aranyakanda. It's Ram's quality, of a crowning quality. So there's the surrender, there's the four ministers, there's Vibhisana taking shelter. And there we see his being anointed, not just being accepted in Ram's kingdom, but he's going to be coronated as the king. That even before Ravana is killed, he's the next king. So a formal ceremony, Lakshman bathing by the sea, and so forth and so on. Vibhisana's mode of service during the coronation, completely submissive. It's not just, I got what I wanted. So then Ram asked Vibhisana, how do you think we should get to Lanka to be victorious? And he made the suggestion, the ocean personified will help you. So Ramachandra accepted that advice. This is again an ideal leader. He's taking advice from his follower. Leaders don't always do that. Leaders don't always have to do that. But it's a principle that he exhibited regularly. So there's details in different versions of Ramayana. Here it shows he's fired an arrow. When the ocean personified Samudra didn't come, then he fired an arrow and the ocean started to boil, and so he came, saying, I didn't know who you were. I'm so sorry. What can I do for you? There's a lot. The exchange between Samudra and Ramachandra, it's all very nice. Because of time, it's just a quick recap. And guess what? That's the end of part 1. Oh. But there's more. So let's see. We have another evening. One more evening. So we can do Vibhisana part 2. We can do all kinds of things besides that, but we could do that. It's a very important person. I mean, he's the next king after Ravana. And he's, an emblem of virtue. And he's fully surrendered, which means he's fully protected. So he's a very special person in the midst of all of what he went through to uphold the standards in speech and conduct, and very, very difficult. We may have some difficulty sometimes, more than sometimes. But, it's not quite the same scale of what Vibhisana had to deal with. Ravana, and Kumbhakarna, and Shurpanakha, and hordes of Rakshasa soldiers, and very bad. But because he was his brother, on that principle, he stayed. At least, but continued speaking what a virtuous person will say. And his life was protected, ultimately, by the personality of Godhead. So, Vibhisana is a very special person. And the whole picture, the big panorama of the personalities of Ramayana, which is what our topic is, he's a very important person. I mean, that Ramachandra gives him Ranganath to take home with him and worship in Lanka. Wow. How much respected was he and trusted? Anyway, very special personality. Let's see if there's some comments. Yeah.
This is the last evening program.
Oh.
We will be speaking about
Okay.
Ramayana.
Okay.
We have an evening program.
Yeah, we do.
Yes, but
Yeah.
it is separate.
So there's no more. This is it.
No, but this is
Okay. 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 Over here?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hi, Bo.
Haribo. Wonderful class, Maharaj. You mentioned about surrender. And is it an everyday thing or is it a one-time surrender?
Yeah.
And the follow-up statement is about Vibhisana. Even though Vibhisana is living in a bad association of Ravana, how did he acquired that single point surrender towards Rama? Because association is more important.
Well, you can trace it back to his father. And, the seed was from his father. And the seed was a perfectly virtuous personality. And his father marked before he was born what he would become. And obviously something was passed on from his father. So, the inference of your question is, how can there be bhakti without receiving bhakti from someone? Without devotee association, how can you be so fixed in bhakti? So his father. Some of our devotee children, they're devotees. They don't necessarily. We have temples and they have friends and things like that. But there's a big responsibility for being a mother or a father to at least provide the seed of bhakti for our dependents. It's a big responsibility. It's not just, again, not just a one-time thing. It's an ongoing. And there's no guarantee. That's like, in reverse, Prahlad was the son of a demon, but he had non-religious association. And it can be, the son of a great devotee can become a demon. That can also happen. There's no guarantee.
And also, Maharaj, if you go back a few slides, you showed that he prayed for 5,000 years. I'm not sure if that Prabhu was there when you showed that.
Well, he did austerities, yes, but the austerities, but where'd the seed come from? Along with the austerities, because the others also underwent austerities. But he wanted unalloyed devotion. So where'd the seed for that desire come from? Okay.
Thank you. Maharaj.
Yeah. Wait a minute, here comes the microphone. Right, turn around. There you go.
So my question is, like, how did Vibhisana maintain his virtue even though everybody else was demons?
How did he maintain his virtue even when everyone else was demons? That's your question?
Yes.
Krishna protected him.
Thank you.
Okay. The other side.
Hare Krishna Guru. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, thank you for the lecture.
Go ahead. You're on.
So I have two questions.
Two.
So my first is, you were explaining that the point of the lecture is there's a question. Is surrender a one-time thing or an all-going life thing?
It's a debate.
It's a debate. So even Ravana, he did many austerities. So my question is, while he must have done a bunch of austerities to Lord Shiva and other devatas, is it the fact that he did the austerities surrender, or
No.
the thought that
Both.
he had during?
Supposing you don't have to do great austerities, like Ravana did great austerities. So it's not the great austerities. There's basic austerities, the four magic principles. We don't violate those, and there's other things that we don't do. We don't steal. We don't certain things we don't do. So that we restrain our senses in modest ways, in minimal modest ways, but that's not the essence. There may be some other people that are vegetarian, for example, that aren't bhaktas, and they have different reasons why they may be vegetarian. But so it's not the austerities per se, it's the consciousness behind. Then you flip it and say, if there's consciousness behind, then you're ready to do whatever. There's some indication from the one who I'm feeling this submission to. What do they want? And what do they want not? And so I do those things because of the submission. So the essence is the consciousness, not just the behavior. But behavior follows consciousness. What's inside comes outside.
My second question is, so when Hanuman, he was going to Lanka to deliver a message to Sita, right?
Yeah.
To
Ravana, to Sita, then to Ravana also.
So he was going there primarily as a messenger. So
Yes. Yeah.
as the messenger, they usually aren't supposed to attack nor be attacked. So was it his intent to burn down Lanka when
No.
he went there?
No. The burning down of Lanka was in response to putting his tail on fire. And his tail was on fire because his tail followed behind him. And it was on fire. But, he wanted to teach them a lesson. You think you're big, powerful guys. I'll show you. And I'm just a messenger. And wait till you deal with the guy I'm the messenger for. So you're messing. Don't mess. But the fire wasn't the plan. It was they did the fire. And he was going to teach them the lesson. Burning burning down Lanka wasn't the lesson. And it was a palace of gold. How do you burn gold? There must have been gold on top of something. Anyway, that's another question. Okay? Got it? Okay. Yes, no, or maybe? No, okay. Okay. I go.
Thank you so much. My question was that Ravana might have come to know that Vibhisana has surrendered
Yes.
to Sri Ram. So
Yeah.
what was his, did he try to threaten him that, change your attitude, come towards me and don't surrender to Ram? Like what kind?
It was too late. He was already, he was going to kill him.
Yeah.
And then, he kicked him in the chest. So it was just intimidation beyond. It's a little, as I mentioned, it's a little bit like Vidura. It wasn't just the insult. It was, there's no service. My purpose in being here, my Vibhisana purpose in being there was some service. And there was no service because this brother of mine, he's impossible. I tried and I tried and I tried again, and you had to learn the hard way, I guess. Okay. So service was no longer available or, useful. So let me do some other service like that.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much for the wonderful class, Maharaj. My question is, you mentioned Ramachandra will give surrender shelter to anybody.
Yeah.
But when Vibhisana came for the first time, he actually, without giving shelter, he approached Sugriva and Hanuman.
That's natural.
Asking. But Sugriva had vocal against Vibhisana.
Yeah.
So, but end of the day, when before giving the shelter, he sent Sugriva to bring Vibhisana to him to give the shelter.
Yeah.
So, what kind of a teaching we can take about
That's a nice question.
Right.
Okay, now I understand the question. Ram is respectful of everyone, including the one who has a different view than he does. And Sugriva, 3 times over, yeah, but, he wasn't exactly talking back. He was revealing his heart. And his interest was Ram's well-being. So Ram accepted that that's his purpose. So the lesson is, have you now come to the stage where you accept this is the right thing? He didn't present it in that language, but that's the message. If there's more yeah buts, then let's have some further discussion. But now I'm making you this request. You're the one he approached, so now you go back and invite him. So it's just let the mission of acceptance be something that Sugriva embraces. It's very special. I mean, the subtleties of Vaishnava etiquette are fantastic. We can learn that. So what we can learn is the subtleties of etiquette. But with power behind it, he's he doesn't have anything to worry. You have nothing to worry for my sake. Okay, I think yes. We're about to end. You have the last question, looks like.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. My question was about Vibhisana.
You got to hit that magic button. Now.
My question is about Vibhisana's wife. What was her mood when Vibhisana was leaving? Do we have any information? And why did she not go with him? And were there, when this injustice was going on of bringing Sita to Lanka, I'm sure there were people who were against this decision. And how?
No, most people were just lined up with Hanuman or dead. Lined up with Ravana or dead. So she was an exception. And, there is no information, but one can take a reasonable guess. He's going to come back as the king. So I'm his wife, and I'm faithful to my husband, and he's making a decision to, there's no more service for me here, kind of decision. So she's endorsing her husband's decision with wifely view that the right decision is being made. It's not like that's the end of it. He's never going to come back again. But he made the right decision for the right reasons, and he tried doing the right things, and it was no more service for him. it's odd. There isn't two things. We don't have any information of what she was feeling, what she said or did. And the other is intuitively we can understand she's a qualified person as her husband. And so she wasn't whining and complaining, why didn't he take me with him, or, no yada, yada, yada stuff. Just accepting and not feeling unprotected. Yeah. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Ramachandra ki, Gaur Premanandi.